Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 5 of Festival of the Future here at the marvellous Moors Valley Country Park in the heart of Dorset. It's a marvellous place here, and I do hope you get a chance to visit. So this is day 5 of Dorset Council's Festival of the Future, where we've been exploring innovation and technology throughout the week. And today we're going to be focused on adult social care. My name's Aidan Dunn. I'm a director at Dorset Council, and I'm accompanied by my colleague here.
Hello, I'm Councillor Laura Miller and I'm the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care and Health at Dorset Council. We've had a great week-long event looking at innovation across Dorset, and today's focus is on health and social care and how we can really make some changes to people's lives. And Aidan, I think you're going to be really actually inspired by some of the stuff we've been doing.
Well, I've done my quick session on the rowing machine here in the park already. Now, there's so many things. I'll just do a quick plug for the park, actually. There's so many things you can do here, be it park run on a Saturday morning, yoga or go ape, or maybe keep it involved in many of the other activities. There's even a model train that's running around. But I'm mindful, we have got a live studio audience here in the park, but we've got a global audience today as well. So we really hope that some of the innovations that we'll be highlighting that you'll find really useful and interesting. So we're going to be looking to inspire you, our audience, and inspire ourselves about the work that we're doing in social care. We're going to be talking about how tech can help people live independently, how COVID has had an impact on that and changing people's lives. And we're going to be looking at all sorts of innovations as we look at housing as well. So we hope you really do enjoy the next sessions. Now, one of the theme, the ambience we're trying to go for is sort of tomorrow's world meets Glastonbury. And let's just see how that goes. So, anything else from you, Laura, before we meet our first guests?
I just think I'm going to struggle to get down off this, to be honest, but I'll give it a go. Let's go and meet them. Ooh.
Okay, we'll go over and meet our first guests here. Hello, good morning and welcome. So our first guest is Helena Zoom from Microsoft. Helena, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'd love to. Thanks very much, Aidan. So my name's Helena Zaum and I'm the social care lead at Microsoft, and I'm really delighted to be here again at the Dorset Festival of the Future, which is the chameleon of festivals, I think it's fair to say. It takes a different form every year, but it's really lovely to be outside catching some fresh air for wellbeing. So yeah, delighted to be here. Thank you.
Good, and we're also joined by Elsbeth Bridges, our commissioning manager. Elsbeth, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Hello, I'm Elsbeth Bridges. I'm the commissioning manager for Dorset Promoting Independence Service, and I manage the assistive technology contracts. And it's really great to be celebrating technology and what we're doing in Dorset.
And assistive technology, that's a theme we're going to be talking about. So let's start with the bigger picture. If we can an insight from Microsoft, if we may. So, Helena, in your position, you must get to see digital innovation taking place across the country. And what are you seeing in terms of how social care is changing and how technology is supporting that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think during the course of the pandemic, what we've really seen is a huge rise in digital confidence in terms of the sort of consumer end. So, older people, people living with disabilities, actually really finding that digital is bringing them into society, and they're really much more confident, I think, about the use of technology. But actually, I think also in terms of practitioners, digital delivered on its promise during the pandemic. And so we're really excited to see curiosity turning into ambition in terms of how digital services are being thought of also by decision makers in this space. So yeah, very excited.
Yeah, and the pandemic it's one of those things. I mean, it's a terrible, terrible thing, the pandemic, but it has accelerated so much innovation and uptake. I mean, it's one of the few upsides of the pandemic in that way. And how has Microsoft reacted to the pandemic and some of the technology that you've developed?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we were very proud to play our part in supporting organisations like Dorset Council and others during the pandemic to support the great work that you were doing to sustain that community response. And I think it's been very interesting to observe Dorset, others, Bury, Norfolk, really thinking carefully actually about putting a digital slant on some of the great community work that was going on anyway. So really supporting neighbours to be neighbourly. It's lovely. There's a bit of a tractor coming past at the moment. It's very atmospheric. So it was really, really fantastic to see that, and actually also people starting to see that digital has a really important role to play in sustaining those community bonds. And I think we're going to talk a bit about that later on as well. So yeah.
We will. And one of my roles at the council, as well as being as part of being an exec director, I'm responsible for technology and innovation, but also the finances as well. And this is such a hot topic within social care nationally, and if not globally. I think here in Dorset, with our populate a higher proportion of older people than most of the rest of the country. Having technology is part of the solution for us, isn't it? And I know that and we'll see later on this morning the sort of technology that's helping us with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think technology's got a really important role to play, not only because it can help us manage demand, but most importantly, actually, it's empowering for people as they age, or indeed for younger people who might be living with disabilities, to retain their independence, because actually the more we can do for ourselves or just relying on friends and family, the more normal life feels. And that's what it's all about, really, empowerment. But yes, Aidan, you're absolutely right that there are substantial savings to be made so that we can really allocate our resources to people who most need it.
Yeah,
as well.
Support as many people as we can with the funding we have available. So if we can look towards the actual future, my future, to make it personal, will I be looked after by a robot in the future, do you think?
That's a really great question. So I think there are a couple of things I'd say about the future. So the first is, people talk about data all the time. Data's the new oil. Data is also the oil that's going to grease the wheels of, I think, a better ageing experience for us all. And my mum is a local here, so I'm very keen that you get it right in Dorset. We need to be joining up different data sets that help us make better decisions about what's right for us, our family and friends, and indeed for the system to respond in a joined up way. So I think that is a real kind of critical foundation stone. As for the robots, I think it's really important that we have a dialogue around the consent and what people want. But I put it to you, if you need very, very personal care, then in some ways, I don't know about you, I think I'd almost rather have a robot help me in some of those ways, and then be able to spend, perhaps precious time with human beings, having a cup of tea, discussing what really, really matters to me. But that's my personal opinion. There may be others who take a different view, but we already see quite a lot of robotics in this space, and it's important that we have a dialogue about it.
And you make a really good point about, first of all, about the data. And I think later on this morning we're going to be looking at the Dorset Care Record, which is a way of connecting some of the data that have been held disparately before between health and social care. So I think that'll be a real insight that we'll explore later. And I think you're right about the aspect around personalised care, isn't it? So that robots can do some things for us, but it's that human connectivity that was so important through the pandemic. It brings us back to the pandemic and the work that we've been doing about connecting our communities through the pandemic. So if I move on to the Dorset response,
please do. I'm
Elsbeth,
excited.
we'll come to you now. So what sort of innovation is happening in Dorset in particular, and what sort of experimentation is going on?
Well, we introduced the technology-enabled care team in Dorset in 2018, purely to do that, to look at the digital offer, because there's a recognition that a lot of the technology we've been using for a long time is quite old. It's old analogue, care line, pager-type technology, which is reactive. And we've been really on the sort of journey since then around looking at what's coming on the market. There's a lot of enabling type technology, so things like apps that you can use, brain in hand. We've trialled and we're using that now with service users and people with mental health and Asperger's, where they've got high anxiety. We've been promoting the Orca site, which is a site that people can go to have reassurance that they've looked at apps and they've been tested, and they can give them a rating on the quality of the data stored and the cost and the effectiveness of the app. But we've also been looking at other things that can prompt and we can use. And more of what is out on the market now is moving towards digital and mobile technology. So when you go and look at the Tech Lounge, Claire will be able to show you some of the mobile technology that we use for tracking, for purposeful walking for people with dementia. But more lately, it's really exciting that digital technology is moving, and even that old care line technology is moving towards artificial intelligence, which sounds a bit scary, but actually it's a system that learns someone's pattern of movement, their activities of daily living. So if someone gets up at a regular time, goes to the bathroom, goes through to the kitchen, makes a cup of tea and switches the kettle on, it learns that person's routine. And if that changes for whatever reason, it can then send an alarm through to loved ones or to a care line to alert them that perhaps Mrs. Jones hasn't got up at the usual time and maybe she might have fallen. So if she hasn't made a cup of tea by 8 o'clock, someone can go and check on her, ring her to make sure that everything's okay. So it's less intrusive. It's more around monitoring and learning about the person. And we can use that. And there's synergy that we can develop with our colleagues from health around sort of help promoting better health and well-being. And there's organisations now that are looking at apps that you can wear, wearable devices that show how much you're walking. And they've demonstrated that actually the more the person can walk and be mobile and drink plenty, they reduce the incidence of urinary tract infections, but also reduces impacts of falls and other things. So that has a benefit for health and social care, but primarily a benefit for that person. They're not going into hospital. So Dorset are starting looking at lots of pilots, and you'll see when you go and talk to Claire that we're doing a pilot currently around the Lily project, which is something similar where we can test equipment and just monitor how someone's going. It's not a camera, it's all about movement and turning on switches and devices.
That's fantastic, Elspeth. I just want to touch on living in a rural county. We know that, especially during the pandemic, isolation had a massive impact, social isolation had a massive impact on so many of our residents. And actually we had to stop our day centre services because, obviously, pandemic. But we actually responded to that, didn't we, by creating a virtual day centre. Do you want to just talk about that?
So it came under the heading of the Better Days pilot, and Claire and the digital team worked with the learning disability services and day centre services through Tricuro, identifying people where we could trial different devices and where we could communicate with them. So Claire looked at 3 sort of remote devices, Cradle, Ethel and Comp Pro, and she probably talked about that in the Tech Lounge discussion this morning. But we also looked at the Samsung Galaxy and tablet and smartphone. And it was enabling people to sort of link with the day centres, but also linked with loved ones where they possibly wouldn't have had that opportunity. Some of the devices, if the person didn't have Wi-Fi, we were able to give them a Wi-Fi dongle at a minimal cost to help them access the service. So even if they weren't connected to the internet. We were able to do that through mobile technology. And we were able to then link up with some organisations that did craft in a box, where people could practice, that box was sent and they could practice doing craft work, but also they could link in with the day centres on wellbeing checks and linking with family and friends. So once we contacted them, they were able to sort of give that information to their loved ones, and they were also able to contact them. And also being able to test different devices. Not everyone has the ability to use technology. So some of the devices like the Comp Pro is a bit like a little television screen, the old-fashioned one where you've got literally a dial that you turn to switch on. So someone with early dementia could just turn it on without having to sort of link into the internet or dial out. So it was a direct feed to loved ones. So we're getting that feedback shortly, and hopefully we can look at how we can mainstream it for those that are really socially isolated. So Dorset isn't well known for its mobile technology, but we are looking at ways that we can use different types of technology. So things like the Internet of Things is going to be used more and more, where we have little black spots across the county. So hopefully we are moving forward, and we're using some of the learning from those pilots to mainstream it.
Brilliant. And actually, I think we've got some footage of the Better Days pilot. Can we have a look at that?
Hello, my name is Claire Collett. I'm an occupational therapist in the Council's Technology Enabled Care team, and I'm here today to tell you a little bit about our Better Day assistive technology pilot that we've been running in the Council. Last year, due to COVID-19, many people couldn't attend the day centres that they were going to, and so we wanted to see how technology could support people at home. So we tested a number of different devices out, and each one was different in what they could do. We wanted to make sure that people could connect to the day centres through these devices, but also maybe connect with loved ones. And so we wanted to test out quite a few devices, and I'm going to tell you about some of them today. This is the Comp, and it's a really easy to use device. It just has one button to turn it on and off. It was developed for people who maybe not be able to manage tablets or smartphones or laptops. It's incoming only, so it means that the user can't video call out or send messages out of it, but loved ones and family and friends can send photos, they can send messages, and they can also have a video call. So if I had a loved one with a Comp at home, I would have the app on my mobile phone, which allows me to do a variety of things, send a message, or I could upload a photo, or I could call my loved one and have a video call with them. This is the Cradle Connect, and it sits on top of the television, and it has its own remote control. It's compatible with most TVs, but it doesn't take over the TV. If you're watching your normal TV programs, it would flash up here to let you know that there's some content coming. So that could be a photo being sent from a loved one, it could be a video being uploaded, or it could be someone's trying to video call. The difference with the Cradle is that it's two-way. So the user can actually initiate a video call, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But normally the person would have the remote control, and they have control over what they want to do. So if they want to view photos, they can choose which photo album. They can go back to pressing the heart button. So say we didn't want to watch our photos, say we wanted to go back to our TV, we can choose that. Or we can say, no, I want to make a video call. So if I wanted to make a video call, I would press yes, and I can choose who I want to video call. When I press yes, it will ask me first if I'm happy with my appearance. This is the Ethel Smart Care Hub. It sits on a stand and it's a touchscreen device. It's very interactive and it's two-way. So if I was a user, I could use it to video call someone as well as receiving video calls in. I could even request a call. So it would tell me that my request's been sent, and then Claire would get an email to say that I want her to call me. I could look at websites. I could have a number of websites here and click on them and view them. I could look at some videos that I might have uploaded, or I could look at some photos that I might have uploaded by friends and family. I could even do exercises if I wanted to. So press on an exercise and I can join in with that. I can also look at messages. So if I had been sent any messages, I could click read and then I could reply to my message using the touch screen here. Or I could write my own message and select who I wanted to message and then press send. For us as a council, it's been really useful to try out all of these different devices and see how they can support people in their own homes. We've learned that digital and technology should be accessible for all, no matter what your age or ability.
Good, so we're back live now at Moors Valley Country Park. I hope you found the first two segments very useful. So hopefully you're getting a sense that of the global perspective on assistive technology as well as what's going on in Dorset. Now, if you have any questions, you can post them. Either you can shout them out if you're part of the live audience, but also post them on Slido. And I think the Slido tag's about there on your screen. Post your questions on Slido. And we've got a questions and answer session at the end. But now we're going to go and get practical, I think, at our tech table here at the latest marquee. And we've got two experts. So we've got Councillor Piers Brown.
Hi, Aidan. Nice to see you.
And you, Piers. Great to see you. And listeners and viewers, you may have heard Piers on the radio this morning.
You're more likely to have heard Claire on the radio this morning, but I've done some few bits in the past, yes. But, we'll talk you through some of the tech for those.
We'll do that in a second. And Claire, you've just featured on the video. Claire, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Claire Collett. I'm an occupational therapist for the council and I work in the technology-enabled care team.
Brilliant. So Piers and Claire are going to talk us through some of the technology we've got on display here. I think we're going to work from this way across. So shall I hand over to you, Piers, to start and see what we've got and maybe experiment with a bit of it as well?
Okay, thank you, Aidan. So our sort of headline trial that we're running at the moment, which some of the members of the public may have seen, is our Lily programme that we've signed up with a company called Lily to run a trial of passive sensors in people's homes. Now, the reason we're running a trial is to see what the impact of this technology can be, make sure that we can analyse that and then make decisions based on evidence rather than necessarily our perception. So a sort of a general overview is that it consists of motion sensors for things like doors and the fridge, and electronic appliances. And it brings those data points together, puts them through a artificial intelligence piece of software in the cloud, and then uses that information to then highlight to people's occupational therapists if there's been a change in behaviour that may indicate that someone's health is either deteriorating or getting better. So, to give you an example, actually, although we haven't finished installing all of the systems into all of the trial properties yet, it's already flagged up to someone's occupational therapist that there had been a change in their health conditions that allowed them to pick up the phone, have a chat, and we've managed to stop that person from possibly needing to go into hospital and their care sort of going downhill. And really, that's the aim of the game. That's all we're trying to do, is keep people healthier for longer and in their own home with their friends, their family, their community, doing what they love, but making sure they're safe at the same time. So, that's the idea behind the trial, but we want to run that trial, get the feedback from the users, get the feedback from our occupational therapists as well, so make sure before we decide if we're going to roll it out more widely.
Thank you, Piers. So let's just underline that point, I think, isn't it? We're trying to keep people in their home as long as possible using the technology because we know that's what people want and that's what is the right thing for them. And also when people are ready to leave hospital, if they have had to go to hospital, enables them to be back in their home rather than going into a care home or anything else. So Piers, back to you.
Yeah. Not just that's what that people want as a general rule of thumb, but also that all of the evidence suggests that it generates better healthcare outcomes as well. So that's the real sort of key point. But a lot of the technology we're going to sort of talk about in a moment is that preventative technology. It's about stopping people having an accident. A nice sort of example is having a trip or a fall. Very, very common, and particularly in people slightly older, can then lead to having to have a hip replaced, etc. And that really markedly changes someone's quality of life. So if we can reduce that risk, and therefore keep people out of hospital, living in their home longer, we extend their healthy lives, and that's absolutely fantastic. That's what we're aiming to do. Sorry, I want to ask a question.
Fighting over. Well, it's great theory, isn't it? It's great theory, and I guess our question is, does it work? So should we try some practical examples? So Claire, should we come over to you?
Thank you. So, we've got a Ray here. So, one of the first things is this little gadget. Again, it's very similar to what the Lily system's doing, but this one works on a different sort of mobile frequency, so not like your normal cellular coverage. It's called narrowband Internet of Things, and basically we have a lot of people in Dorset that live in a kind of poor coverage area, so where there's normal mobile phone coverage is very poor. So this little gadget sits by the kitchen, on the kitchen worktop, by the kettle, and it will measures atmospheric sort of changes, so perhaps temperature, humidity, and it will send an email alert every day to say whether the person is up and about and behaving and carrying on their normal routine. So we're testing about 10 of these in some really poor mobile phone coverage areas, so that we're quite excited, and we're working with the 5G rural project team with this. So that's one of them.
Can I just ask a quick question about that? Who does the email go to? Is it to the council, or is it to you as sort of in a social care OT role, or is it to a friend or family? Could you explain a little bit more?
Yeah, at the moment for the pilots, it's going to staff, occupational therapists, but these products can easily go to family members or a care agency, a provider. So there's, at the moment, just for the pilot, it's coming to us, and we're then acting on what we're seeing. So the next one that we've got is this lovely little thing, and I've got a glamorous assistant here. So this is an app, and we've been working with Vodafone, and it's the Vodafone Connected Living app, and we're going to use it with people with learning disabilities. So it's really an enabling kind of app, and it's got so many features to help perhaps a person develop more skills and learn new tasks. So we've got it set up, and there's a service user over in the background called Brian, who I've been setting up some tasks for him to do every day, and we can go into Dorset's day, and we can see what tasks he's got to do. So he's already put the rubbish bins out, which is great. I'm not sure he's up and dressed and had a cup of tea, though. So, but also what I could do is look at his routine. So we can categorise it into weekdays or weekend. We can also check the to-do. So actually, he has had a cup of tea, so that's good. I think he sat over there drinking his cup of tea. So if I'm a care provider, I can see what the person I'm supporting has done, and whether they're sort of keeping up with that activities of daily living. So one of the other features which is really great is the how-to. And actually for an OT, one of the things that we specialise in is activity analysis, task analysis, breaking a simple task down into set steps that the person can model or repeat and then learn that independently. So what we're aiming to do is people will say, what do they want to achieve? What's their goal? And we will break down that task into tiny steps. So let's say something very simple, making a cup of tea. And then it will go through all the steps that you would have so the person can learn it bit by bit. And then they will become independent with doing that for themselves. They don't need perhaps a carer to do that for them. So this is a fantastic app. And one of the great other features is it allows somebody who has poor speech or maybe no speech at all to communicate. So we can set up set phrases. So I'm going to put the mic down to the bottom of where the speaker is. So
I am feeling sad as my leg is hurting today. Hello, nice to meet you. Is it dinner time yet? Please, can I have a drink?
So we're really pleased to be piloting this, and we're going to use around 40 of these apps with lots of different people and different abilities. So thank you, my glamorous assistant. We have got lots of other products here. One of these things here, this little pack, is a hospital discharge pack. So we can enable people to go home from hospital a lot quicker, maybe even at weekends. And it comes with a simple telephone that literally connects through to the 24-hour monitoring centre. So if someone's feeling unwell or if they happen to sort of have a fall, they can press that phone and it would go through to the monitoring centre. So we put these little packs in hospital, all the acute hospitals and the community hospitals as well. So, but some of the other items, I mean, we've got products here that can help carers, even children, simple products that can enable someone to be more independent or be safe and manage risk. So for carers, we've got sort of cameras and watches, and we've also got a range of GPS trackers here. So we've got things that can go in your shoes. So we've actually got one here that we'll put on you, I think, Aidan, and we'll see. What I would do is I would, if I wanted to know where you were, if like you were in the pub or something, I would send a text asking where you are. So I would simply text LOC for location, and then within a few seconds, it will send me back a link to your location, and I would press the Google Maps and it will come up. It says you're in Westmore's Country Park. You're not in the pub.
And I think my wife's looking for one of these as we speak. What sort of customer or client or patient service user would use this sort of technology? What sort of circumstances?
Yeah, I mean, we are looking after a lot more people in Dorset who have dementia, Alzheimer's. And one of the most important things about a GPS tracker is that it enables them to go on their daily walk, but to be safe. And their family and loved ones know that actually if they get a bit lost, they could try and locate them and track them. So we are using those quite a lot. Some of the devices that you see will go through to the monitoring centre. So for people who don't have a loved one that it can connect to, it will go through to the 24-hour Careline monitoring centre. So, and there's such a variety, but some of the designs might, for some people, look a bit chunky, and it's not always going to be conducive to what people will wear. I think we need to look at technology that does look more normal, looks like normal jewellery, because some of the traditional ones are a little bit chunky and perhaps not so user-friendly, I think.
Thanks, Claire. And I think it's really interesting. the way that technology is being incorporated in everybody's life, isn't it? As just as a weekend runner, I've got sort of GPS tracking technology. It becomes more and more the norm, doesn't it? And the sense of the way that smartphones are developing with their apps, it becomes much more commonplace to be monitoring your own heart rate, blood pressure, and all those sort of things. So, Claire, can I ask, as an OT, a couple of questions? One, first of all, what sort of reaction are you getting from the public when you suggest this? Do people embrace it, or are they fearful of it? And secondly, in terms of your personal role as an OT, are you finding that that's changing over time as you have to adapt your job to technology, as it were? So 2 questions there.
Yeah, so the first question, I think people do have a mixed approach to technology. For some people it can be quite scary, quite frightening. But for other people, they embrace it. They think, actually, this is going to make me feel better. I'm going to be more independent. I'm going to be safe if I fall, or if I go out and I get lost. I know that someone will know where I am and they can help me. There is a lot of everyday technology, like the smart voice assistants, that people are embracing, especially in the last year. And we've noticed a lot of people getting, the Amazon and the Google voice assistants, and using those to help them with their everyday activities, reminding them to take their tablets, even making phone calls to a loved one through them. So that is very important. And for OTs, we are about occupation. We enable people to keep up with their occupations, to manage whatever that occupation is. And it could be that I want to be safe in my home. It could be I want to go out and do some part-time work, but I have a disability. So we can look at technology, equipment, adaptations, just to help people in their homes, keep them independent, and keep them safe, really. Yeah.
Okay, so just a couple more questions, and then if there's time, maybe one more bit of technology to showcase what we've got here. So a question really about accessing this technology. So there's a lot going on. We've got Dorset Council is heavily promoting it, but it looks quite expensive, some of this, says the council's finance director. So is this necessarily about something the council is spending money on, or how do people access this technology?
It's a little bit of both. So the council will fund some of the technologies and some not. And that's why we've set up the Tech Lounge, because although a lot of the technology is a lot more reasonably priced than you're probably fearing, people don't want to make necessarily that commitment if they don't fully understand it, and also probably aren't aware of just the breadth of stuff that is available. So the Tech Lounge that we have set up allows people to come in, have a chat with a fantastic OT such as Claire in a completely relaxed environment, have a little bit of a play and understand the different options that are available to them, and then go away and make those purchasing decisions. And we can help provide that sort of technological assistance in how do we set this up, for example, and get it going in someone's home. So it very much depends. But as you said, you're a finance director. But one of the things that we want to do is make sure that the preventative technology, this is about preventing people from having an accident or getting their health conditions going downhill, which isn't just the right thing to be doing because we want people to be healthier for as long as possible, but also it helps avoid having to have more costly care packages put in place in the longer term. And we're all aware of the debate nationally about how that's funded currently between the private individual and the local authority. So this is really an investment both in people's future quality of health and life, but also it does have a financial impact on people's long-term finances as well. And that's quite a hot topic at the moment, as I'm sure you're aware.
Thanks, Pierce. And the Tech Lounge, that's at County Hall in
Yes.
in Dorchester. And last time I was there, it felt like going into an IKEA meets curries or something like that. Okay, so we're just going to sort of start to wrap this up. Claire, anything finally from you? Anything particularly whizzy you want to share with us, or indeed, I'm intrigued by this non-digital piece of tech.
Well, as part of the pack that we place in hospitals to help someone go home, obviously more quickly, this is a portable key safe. So, and we also have a little night light, which if someone gets up at night, they can obviously see where they're going, because a lot of people don't put their light on when they get up. That's when a lot of falls happen. But I was just sort of going to come off the back of what you asked Piers, in that the council obviously do fund technology for people. If their needs are met under the Care Act, then we would fund some technology. So it all depends on the assessment, obviously, first of all, and we would make sure that's person-centred. But also we like to look at what have people already got in their homes, because we like to work in a strength-based way at the council. So we would obviously, if someone's got a mobile phone even, the accessibility features on the mobile phones, we don't even know the full extent of what they can do. So we would look at what people's got around them already and tap into that, and then maybe provide a little bit extra. So just wanted to sort of mention that.
Brilliant, thank you. So let's start to wrap this segment up. I think what we've heard, or first of all, what we've seen is some amazing technology, some basic and simple technology through to some really high-tech tracking stuff, all about trying to support people to live at home in the comfort of their home environment for longer. And we've heard that from Dorset Council, we do provide some of that technology via an assessment, but also some of it is publicly available for you to buy for one of your loved ones. And if you want to demo it, come along to Dorchester and check out our tech lounge. Okay, we're going to wrap it up there. So thank you, Councillor Brown. Thank you, Piers. Thank you, Claire. Been really helpful and interesting. And I'll hand over now to Laura, who's in our other marquee gazebo. Over to you.
Thanks, Aidan. So yeah, absolutely. And isn't staying in our own home for as long as we can what we all want, really? So much opportunity over there to really help people do that. I think Slido's open, so if you have any ideas around how to make tech really, really accessible to people, how do we get the message across to people that might not be considering it and actually might not yet need care? So we really want to get in early, don't we? And think about using technology before you really, really need it, before it gets to that critical point, I suppose. So Helena, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely, Laura. So, I think you're absolutely right on we need to get people more comfortable with this. And I suppose there is an element of, as younger generations are getting older, we're more naturally comfortable with it. But actually, there's an awful lot of older people around who are very, very whizzy on the technology too. So, I think we are generally becoming more comfortable with it. But I do think that some change is needed in terms of some of these gadgets. Sometimes, and certainly historically, I think that they've looked quite sort of stigmatizing. They look like a hospital kind of thing. That's not really what we want when we're out and about, jogging around a lovely park like this. As Aidan was mentioning, we want to have things that just feel normal. So I'm really excited to see, rings, pendants, and other things coming out actually that, don't necessarily I suppose, put a badge on the fact that you might have, health and care concerns. And it's great to see sites like Granny Gets a Grip, appearing. They've got some really, really cool stuff on there that I'd be really happy to have in my home and not have people think that it was actually, because I had a bad back or what have you. So I think there is some work to do. But I'm actually buoyed up by the fact that, the market opportunity to better serve older people and people living with disabilities, but I think particularly older people, demographics are moving in our favour in terms of actually getting lots of businesses excited and interested in this market. And I think that's why we're starting to see so much innovation.
That's fantastic. And I think I really hear your point about what you would have in your home. And I'm going to get my mum to go on Granny Gets a Grip, actually. She doesn't need to. Sorry, Mum. I'm really sorry. Because I'm just thinking, so Elspeth, my mum, for example, when she took out her new BT package, she got sent a Google speaker and she's been using that when she had her hip replaced. Is that the sort of thing that we're looking at now?
Yes, I think we need to make sure that people are aware of what's available on the market, because sort of 5-10 years ago, Amazon Echo was just coming out, and the smart speaker range were really expensive. Now you can pick up a little Google Mini speaker for £20. So the more they're being used, the more the cost is coming down. And that's part of the reason why we set up the smart work that Claire's done around the Tech Lounge to sort of demonstrate and show what smart technology can do. There's a lot of things that people already use. So if people are a bit scared of technology, we always say, or I've said to people, your remote control for your TV is a piece of smart technology. You're already using it. Let's try and demystify it. We've had examples where we've been out, as Claire said, and done assessments for people moving into independent living. I went to see one young man who they were concerned about him falling and being tracked. And within a few seconds, I'd already established from the grandfather that he already had a tracking app on his mobile phone. So we opened it up to the care providers on the site, and they were able to track him. So actually, we didn't have to spend any money. We had a conversation. We were looking at what he was already able to do and comfortable to do. So I think it's that our generation are going to cope a lot better. I think some of the work that Claire's been doing around understanding some of the technology coming on, one of the things, the biggest thing we found is getting acceptance to wearing a lot of devices. And obviously, if someone lacks capacity, we have to do a mental capacity assessment and a best interest decision. But sometimes, the market, again, drives innovation, and so we've now got trackers that are embedded in belts for people. So a gentleman, if he won't wear something around his neck, there's tracker technology in the buckle that you can have on a belt. So as Helena was saying, we've got to make it more appealing. There is the Go pendant now, which is a tracker falls detector. It links to a care line. So instead of care line traditionally being based in someone's home, it's out and about device, but it looks like a pendant. It's on a metal chain. So for a lady, it's a more useful and more attractive thing to wear. But again, a lot of these devices need charging daily. Well, the new Go pendant, if you charge it up fully, will last over a month. So some of the challenge for us is to find the right technology to support people, but also finding people or loved ones or carers or neighbours who would sometimes charge it up. So as technology develops and they have developed longer life batteries and things get more easier and the price comes down, I think that's going to be really exciting. And I think the next sort of 4 or 5 years is going to be really pushing technology. I don't know whether you've mentioned in the Future Festival this week, but we are moving to a digital system for everyone. So, for example, BT and OpenReach made the decision to ditch the old copper analog technology. Going forward, it's going to move to digital. So more and more of us are going to have technology around the home, and it's going to be more normalised. The challenge for us as a council is how we support our older generation to swap the technology over and make it usable. But I think that we've got several years that we can get our ducks lined up and we can get it right. And I think the message really is, we're here to give advice and support. And we're also here to, inform people through our Dorset for You website. So as Claire does little vignettes, we're able to sort of put them on the website and make it more accessible for people.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And of course, it's not just about the person that maybe has some support needs. It's also about the people that care for them. And there isn't anybody who probably knows more about this than Dame Philippa Russell. She is the Vice President of Carers UK and former Chair of the Prime Minister's Standing Commission on Carers. I've got to get that right. Very long title. But she's been caring for her son, Simon, for over half a century. So she really, really understands what this is about. And I think we're going to hear from her now.
Welcome, Dame Philippa Russell, Vice President of Carers UK and a carer yourself. Welcome to Festival of the Future.
And thank you for inviting me. Sounds very, very exciting, and I'm looking forward to joining you, alas, online and not in lovely Dorset.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you. And so how long were you a carer for, Philippa?
Well, I hate to say it because it obviously reveals my age, but for 57 years. I have an adult disabled son with brain damage who was not expected to live beyond his teens when he was born, but who has actually made the progression from residential care into his own home with support, a lot of digital support, and we're going to talk about that later. And I also was a carer for my husband, who sadly died and had dementia and cancer. So I have experienced, if you like, the age limits of caring for in later life, but also for a young person who hopefully has a life to look forward to.
And you just touched on how you've seen technology being used as part of that. So what sort of technology have you used in your setting?
Well, it's interesting that during the pandemic, I think we all became much more aware of and dependent on technology in all its manifestations. And Carers UK certainly found that its members did realise the value of supportive communities online, the possibilities of shopping, of keeping in touch with families who were shielding or were locked down somewhere. But we also found that 10% of carers found it very, very difficult to get engaged at all. And another 18% said, as actually with parents who were homeschooling, that they were digitally literate, but they couldn't actually afford the Wi-Fi, the devices, any other equipment that they actually needed, because generally speaking, digital inclusion costs like everything else in life. And with my son, I not only, of course, used my local carers support networks and Carers UK, both for support and also to be part of a community, and sometimes, of course, also to say how very, very hard it was, because most of us lost our usual face-to-face services. And in many cases, as with my son, he could not understand why he couldn't go to his day service, why he couldn't go for a short break, why he couldn't just go and have a coffee. But Simon, moving into his own home, went beyond actually having a community of friends online. Simon can't use IT in any way unless I sit with him and work the keyboard, and he therefore doesn't like it very much. He likes the television, but he feels more in control. But we were part of an EU-funded project to see if people with learning disabilities could actually benefit from some of what I might call the smart house technology. So we got a house for Simon. We were able to buy it when houses actually were cheap. That sounds a long time ago. It was a long time ago. And Simon therefore had an alarm system which was linked to CCTV. It was interesting in those days. Now everybody has Hive and all these other things which tell them if there's an intruder in the house. But at the start, there was a lot of anxiety about ethics of inclusion, whether people like Simon might be intruded upon by people spying on them, I suppose one could say. But Simon was very happy. So we had cameras in strategic places. We had reminders with the front and back door to shut the door and to lock it. We had a very simple programmed, colour-coded telephone system for Simon, because he couldn't possibly use a smartphone, so that he could ring particular people that he might want, including emergency services. And he was, of course, linked to a call centre. But we also used sensors, and the sensors told us in the early days, after a time we were able to switch them off because Simon's routine was settled. They told us if he'd drawn the curtains in the morning, because if he hadn't got up. The sensors on the bed told us if he'd got out of bed and if he'd gone downstairs. And we had a very sophisticated alarm system over and above what you'd have in an ordinary house, in case he overheated something. And sometimes, to begin with, the alarms were oversensitive, and we had all the security people and ourselves out. But they actually proved their worth, because a lot of people said to me, how can you actually let your son live on his own. He had support every day from my husband and myself, or support workers, day services, but he slept alone at night. Now, he had been living in a group home, which is actually very expensive for the local authority, if you look at it that way round. Simon living in his house with the telecare equipment was much cheaper. I just make this point because there's value for money. But just a sort of reminder of how the system can work even when things go wrong. One awful night, the alarms went off, and I was told there was a fire at Simon's house. Now, that is the worst thing that anybody could want. And I ran round to his house faster than I've ever run before in my pyjamas to find the police, the fire brigade, everybody you could think of already there. And it turned out that some foolish boys had stolen vodka from the local Tesco, had been drinking in the little field behind Simon's house, and they'd seen something on television about setting fire to wheelie bins. There was a whole spate of that a few years ago. So they thought they'd set fire to Simon's wheelie bin, and then which was out for collection. And then they thought it'd be fun to push it to see where it went. It set fire to the fence. It set fire to the wood panelling on the conservatory at the back. Simon didn't hear anything, but the CCTV picked it up, even though the fire was outside the house. And that was an interesting follow-up, because we know that hate crime is on the increase, and that's one of the reasons people actually want the security of using IT. But of course, we could identify with the CCTV who the boys were, and there was a question of what actually happened to them. But the school and the local police used restorative justice, which meant that we had a meeting with Simon, who didn't really want it, and ourselves and the boys. And in the end, they replanted Simon's garden, which the fire brigade had finished off by trampling, and peace was restored. And I think a lot of interest aroused locally about the potential of telecare. But that's just one example. But I'd also like to say, with a lot of older people, big decisions have to be made when somebody begins to get a bit frail. But they don't want to leave their own home. They don't want to leave their own community. If they do, that's fine. The new digital devices can make such a difference. My mother had dementia and was an incredible escaper. That was the word the police used, because she would get out and she was very fit, and she would really wander off. Now, if you're in a totally safe place to wander off, that doesn't matter. Eventually she would come back, but she would do really dangerous things, like thinking she'd walk out over a weir. And we therefore used a tracker bracelet, so that we could see where she was. I didn't think it infringed her privacy. It meant that she could go out. We didn't have to turn the key in the door. And many older people that I've talked to have felt so much more secure, because they actually have a contact system which will summon somebody if they need them. But I think there's an important point there, that digital inclusion is actually part of wider shared care. I mean, in the end, it can't do everything. Artificial intelligence is beginning to do an awful lot. We're seeing robotic care workers being developed in Japan, and I've no doubt that there's a lot more to come. But again, digital inclusion can enable the support workers, the care staff. It can enable the local NHS to keep in touch with some people. And I would like to say something quickly here about not only telecare, which Simon had, but telehealth care, because the ability to be at home but to be safely monitored is hugely, hugely important. And although there was a lot of discussion about how we can better open up a return to face-to-face GP appointments, nonetheless, there are quite a lot of things which a GP does where they don't need to see you face-to-face, and the technology can really work. But there is a lot of suspicion around, I think. And I think we also need to do more training and support for people who haven't caught on to digital inclusion. And there are a lot of people around who actually can't easily use devices. But if you have something like the carer's passport on your phone, you're carrying around a profile of the person that you care for, the people that you care for, and it's a safety net in case anything ever does go wrong. It can be updated. As I say, it is your personal profile. And just a reflection here too, if you are caring for somebody with complex health needs. My sister-in-law is now very ill, very complex health needs, and she's been in and out of hospital during the COVID pandemic, which is not nice, not with COVID. But we have discovered that the NHS now is developing a whole range of systems by which you can actually have a team meeting and involve the carers without everybody having to go into the hospital. And one consultant said to me after a meeting, he said, if we had been pre-pandemic, we never would have got all these people physically around a table. The OT, the physiotherapist, the pharmacist, and the GP even. But the GP can join in if it's a virtual meeting. So I think we need to celebrate the marketplace, if you like, for digital inclusion, but also recognise that some people will need support. And I'm sure it's true in Dorset, it's true in West Sussex, it's true in Leeds, where they've got a wonderful scheme to actually also offer training and support to carers to use Zoom, to use a whole range of programs, to set up their own support networks, to actually be familiar and confident with the whole world of digital discovery.
You mentioned the carer's passport. Is that something that's available nationally?
Yes, Carers UK have been the initiators, and there's a whole wealth of information on the internet. It's been widely adopted. It can, of course, be printed out. It doesn't have to only exist on a smartphone or computer. And if somebody has a learning disability or dementia or cognitive impairment, then they may very well want a printed version as well. But the carer's passport can go with you into hospital, into an assessment. It can be shared with permission with other family members. It's very simple. It has what you and the person you care for need to know. And the NHS England has embraced it wide and is rolling it out widely. And I think that to have a carer's passport also it recognises that the carer is somebody who is really important to the person they're supporting. And if you think of a very busy hospital, particularly at the minute, my son's had an admission of a few weeks ago, not for long, but a very busy post-COVID hospital where they haven't much time for relatives or anybody else, and quite big decisions may have to be made, then having something like the carer's passport, which has this useful basic information on it, is invaluable. I also think it's important because it can have the contact details for the local community or national organisations that might help a carer. If you're supporting somebody with a rare type of dementia or somebody with cerebral palsy, or your husband has just had a stroke, for example, or you've discovered that your child has type 1 diabetes, it's very, very useful to have all those sources of extra information in one place, simple and accessible.
Absolutely. So you talked about the technology and how it helps keep people independent and keep people safe. You know, it's reassurance and peace of mind. I guess that's also the same for the carer as well. From your perspective, knowing that your son was in that environment and you were able to monitor and see what was happening.
Exactly. And sometimes you really do need to see. I mean, I can see that there are certain ethical issues and that the person who is being cared for needs to be happy that somebody is actually observing them. But on the other hand, we are developing a whole range of materials now, aren't we? So that people who are not caring for anybody with a disability can see just what's happening to their relatives or their family when they're not around. And I think this is security. And certainly with a lot of older people, for example, are very, very worried about falls. You only have to have a couple of falls, even one fall, and somebody's confidence can be destroyed, particularly if they fell and nobody Nobody responded for a very long time. And then they begin to think, oh dear, I ought to go into a care home. Maybe I can't cope. The relatives get panicky. But actually, there are lots of devices now which can monitor and send a message if somebody does fall, which can prompt people if they are at risk of falling, and can actually help them to feel safe and to know that somebody would come if something went wrong. I mean, I'm quite sure if in this house, if I was on my own and I fell and nobody discovered me for 12 to 24 hours, I would feel very unhappy about continuing living here on my own. We have actually got a care line here, which I still keep from my husband's days. I ought to wear the bracelet, but I don't all the time. Press the button and somebody will come. But all these things do make a huge difference. And sadly, I mean, quite a lot of people, particularly in the cities, older people, disabled people living on their own, are frightened about crime now. I mean, they are worried somebody might, maybe very unlikely, but if you are significantly disabled or ill or frail, then odd sounds in the night are very alarming. And if you have the ability to instantly speak to somebody, to summon somebody if necessary, you feel very much more confident. You feel in control of your life, both the carers and the person they're caring for. And a very important thing about these, what I will call observational digital tools, are, of course, they really help people who are working. And now, particularly with early hospital discharge, a lot of people are coming out into the community, often with quite significant disabilities or medical problems, to be supported at home. But if the family member that's helping with that support is trying to maintain a job, they may be very worried unless they can check up regularly whether things are going well. Very importantly, they can prompt and sometimes see with the right device whether somebody's taken their medication or not. And that can be a real problem, particularly with people with dementia. And it does give that sort of ring of confidence. And we know that we don't want people to drop out of the workplace if they want to work. Many people need to work. But I think we know that there are far too many premature retirements each year from family members who just felt it wasn't safe to leave a relative at home. But with the right device, whether it was telecare or something else, that their relative could actually be at home and have pretty much the life, notwithstanding their physical condition that they had before.
That's really fascinating. Thank you so much for joining us at the festival. I could talk all afternoon.
But I'm really looking forward to the festival.
You'll be joining us again in November, won't you, for the Carers Festival to carry on the conversation, which will be wonderful. So thank you very, very much for your time and for joining us today. And we'll see you back in November.
Could I just say one very last thing?
You may.
I was so pleased that you were calling it a festival of the future, because far too often, if you're a carer, you're sick, everything is talked about in terms of problems. We actually need to celebrate some things in communities and families that are going really well. And we need to have a sense of fun still, because life goes on. So a festival of the future sounds absolutely right.
That's a lovely note to end on. Thank you so much.
Well, that was really interesting that session talking about carers. There was a couple of takeaway lines that I took from that. Technology can't do everything. I thought that was a very powerful line. And what we've seen so far this morning is that technology can do lots of things. But as that session was describing, there needs to be a human element as well. And this is very much where our carers come in and the important role of carers. And we're going to discuss that in a moment, about the important role of carers in particular through the pandemic. So really interesting. And a quick plug here for the Digital Dorset hotline that can help carers with their connectivity and skills as well. So Helena, can I come to you? I think you have a national perspective on supporting carers. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So, I think many people perhaps don't realise how many informal carers are, around and about. And in fact, there's about 6 million, I think, but then there are lots of people who are performing a caring role, but they don't necessarily see themselves as a carer because they're just looking after someone they love. One of the innovations that we've been really excited to get to know is from an organisation called Upstream Health. And what they've created really is a hotline for carers. So possibly somebody who's a new carer, or maybe someone who's looking after someone whose needs have changed. They need a bit of coaching. They can call up Upstream Health and Bridget, get some guidance from professionals, but also then get some advice and guidance from the same professionals on some great gadgets to use as well. That can really support carers, because we need to focus on resilience of carers. They play such a critical role in keeping the whole system going. So yeah, I think that's really, really, really critical, Aidan.
Thank you for that, Helen. And did you want to do a quick endorsement of the Digital Dorset hotline as well?
Well, I'd love to. So I have a mum who lives in Dorset, and it is a Dorset thing. But there's a fantastic service in Dorset, which is an informal support line that you can call. I don't have the number, but I'm sure somebody somewhere will, and they can put it on Twitter, I'm sure. And what this does really is just, if you're not sure how to switch on your iPad, or you don't know how to, use an app to order your shopping, you can call, and it's a volunteer-led service, I think, Aidan, isn't it? And they'll just give you a hand. So no question is too small or, too apparently silly. They'll give you a hand. And we think that's a really great example, actually, of empowering people to, really get to grips with technology, because sometimes people are a bit nervous to ask, those real kind of get started type questions. So it's lovely to see that.
Thank you. And absolutely, it's all really part of supporting our unpaid carers, and to have these services available, volunteer-led services, is just so important. And also as part of Carers' Rights Day. I'm going to have to refer to my notes because there is such a lot happening. We have got 25th of November, which is a Thursday. We've got a full day event in Dorset. It's our Carers Festival. And actually, Dame Philippa is going to be joining us again, which is brilliant. Really, really inspirational. And what we're aiming to do with this festival is to thank our unpaid carers, recognise just how critical they are. And carer burnout is really real. And we need to look at different ways of supporting people who are caring for loved ones, people who might not even realise that they're a carer, might not identify as a carer, but are actually doing that sometimes really exhausting role. And it's also an opportunity for professionals to learn about what's on offer, how they can signpost people to different organisations, different voluntary and community organisations. So it's a free event. It's going to be mostly online with some bite-sized sessions. As we've already mentioned, we have got our digital champions, quick plug there, to support if anybody is struggling to get online. So we're going to cover topics like how do you get a break if you're a carer? So important. And people are often in that situation where they just don't know where to go. We're going to have Carer Support Dorset, Rethink Dorset Carers Service. We're going to have welfare advice, benefits advice. I'm just looking at laughter yoga, which sounds terrifying and brilliant at the same time. The Dorset and Wiltshire Fire and Rescue Service are going to be there talking about how to keep your home healthy and safe. Technology-enabled care, the Tech Lounge people will be there as well, mental health sessions, my goodness. So there is going to be an awful lot there, and that's Thursday the 25th of November. I'm going to be at Dorset Museum, actually, which is lovely. Quick plug for Dorset Museum. It's all been done out and lots of money spent on it, and it's very shiny and lovely. And we're going to be there with guest presenters Johnny Walker from Radio 2 and his wife Tiggy, and they're patrons of Carers UK. So we are going to have some people joining us in the museum on the day to chat to those people. And you can, if you're joining us on the day, you can have a little quick scoot free round the museum, which I've actually been, and it is fantastic. So that's going to be really, really exciting. So we're going to advertise that a bit more nearer the date, but just wanted to get that plug in there.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. That sounds like a great event. And now more than ever, I think we need to raise awareness of the support available to our carers. So having spoken about carers, I think that brings us on nicely to start to talk about community and the support that we're able to bring to the community through technology and enabling the community to support itself. And I think this was sort of really, really important factor of what helped us through the pandemic. And Laura, you were heavily involved with that, weren't you, as part of Community Shield? Would you like to sort of explain a bit to the audience about Community Shield in Dorset through the pandemic?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I think without a doubt, Community Shield really was probably the most inspiring thing I've ever been involved with. So if we think back to when that directive was given, really, stay at home, and everybody's feeling really uncertain. You know, I live with my partner and our children, so I don't live on my own, but we were feeling quite scared, quite nervous. And what happened in Dorset was that all of our community, voluntary groups, the council, people from our libraries, our bin men, our highways operatives, everybody that works for the council sort of came together with our community and voluntary sector and thought, right, what needs doing? How can we do this? And we decided the most important thing was one phone number, one email address. So we set that up really, really quickly. We had highways people delivering PPE. We had librarians answering the phone. We had people going off and doing shopping. So if you needed prescription collecting or a bit of shopping or anything like that, then Community Shield was here to do that for you. But more than that, what it actually did as well was it enabled communities. So we had loads of communities that were setting up libraries in bus stops, that were using WhatsApp telephone trees to kind of keep an eye on people who might be living on their own. And really, it was about nobody being left behind. Bit of a Disney quote there, but it was about nobody being left behind and how we could use our partners in the community sector, our partners in charities, and actually what it did was really, really quickly, it just bulldozed any walls that we had between council and community and charity, and enabled us to start building it from the ground up as we needed it. And I think for the future, that's going to be absolutely critical.
So, Laura, that was fascinating to hear what happened in Dorset, but I imagine it was replicated throughout the country. So, Helena, have you got any insights?
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, we've seen really exciting examples of this popping up and down the country, Aidan. And what really excites us at Microsoft about that, though, is that I think for the first time, it's not like community action is new. You know, it's always been there, especially in tight-knit communities. But for the first time, actually, this business of people with a need and those who were able to help got digitised, because you wanted to be able to make sure that people who were on your shielded and vulnerable list were getting the help that they needed. So we've now got a bit of a digital exchange going on where we can see if there's somebody with a need and we know who might be available to help support them. And of course, that gives us a little bit of a window on the world as to emerging need and what's happening in the community, what sort of needs people have. And that, of course, means that organisations like Dorset Council can make better decisions about service planning. So, yeah, I mean, you're not alone. I could call out, you know, Bury have got a great programme called Kind Bury, and Norfolk's another one who we think took a, brilliant approach. But, they're not alone either. I think the really interesting thing and the really important thing, though, is how do we sustain that for the future? Because, some brilliant things came out of the pandemic, as devastating as it was. And this is a really, really great example.
So, Laura, I've got a question for you. How do we sustain this for the future in Dorset?
Yeah, well, actually, it's really simple. You just keep listening. And, in our adults directorate, we've actually got the catchily named stakeholder advisory group, and that's basically all the people. Yeah, we're going to think of a different name. It's fine. It's not great, is it? So we're going to think of a different name. But all that actually means is all the people that we work through Dorset together with. So we've got Age UK, we've got Carers Support Dorset, we've got, Help and Kindness. We've got all of those people that we worked with in that really scary, critical bit. And we've just said, right, come and sit in a room together and tell us how we should be doing things. Let's just keep that spirit going. We make the rules. Nobody needs to tell us how to do this stuff. We just have to keep listening. And it would be such a shame if that was lost. So we're really, really trying to keep hold of that and listen to what the community wants. We don't always know best. Quite a lot of this stuff is happening out there already. And it's better for people. It potentially saves us money. but that's not the most important thing. And actually, it's just about keeping that listening and the community telling us what they need for their people and us just supporting that to happen. So it sounds really easy. It's actually really difficult. Co-creation and co-production is actually really difficult, but if you're committed to it, it really is the right thing.
Brilliant. Thank you, Laura. Helena, I'm going to come to you with it. We've discussed the upsides of technology.
We have.
We've discussed the way...
And there are many.
We've discussed the way... Thank you, Microsoft.
No worries.
We've discussed the way that digital has really impacted and helped the community and the council through the pandemic. We've talked about the positive use of technology and how it's going to help us now and in the future. But there are downsides, aren't there? There's negative aspects of technology. Be that in the workplace, be it for young people, and just simply from my own perspective, Zoom fatigue. Although Microsoft Teams, I haven't got Teams fatigue. It's just Zoom.
Relief.
It's just Zoom fatigue. So what's
Too many cocktail parties.
what's Microsoft's approach to this, and sort of what sort of insights have you got?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I think we anticipate certainly a working world that involves much more of a kind of hybrid approach. In fact, just as we have today, with a in-person audience and then lots of people following online. And I think that if you think about kind of quality of life that many information workers certainly have had, the ability to work from home is a very positive thing, can be also a positive thing for productivity. But we've done some research, so sort of small research, and also actually done a lot of research on our own employees. And the key thing when you're working from home and consuming a lot of life, if you like, via Teams or whichever platform you're using, is you really need to take breaks. We've published some studies recently. So, research study proves your brain needs breaks. And, it's really, really critical. Actually, if you want to get the best out of yourself when you're operating in a digital world, you need to make sure that you take regular breaks. And I think we've all just had to adapt to this, new way of working, new spirit of working. And I would say also the same is true really with, with care technology. There are some things that technology is brilliant at. We saw some great examples earlier. I think data will help us really, really pinpoint and understand who needs help at a particular given time, so we can be really focused about its application. But there are times when actually we just want to see another human being, preferably in physical form. And I think the key thing for, Dorset and other local authorities is getting the data to help you really identify who needs that physical support today. And actually the gadgets, the data, the apps and services that we've spoken about can help you not only understand who needs it, but actually also who might need more of it in the future, and therefore help with service planning.
Brilliant. Helena, that's a really helpful and powerful insight to end this particular segment. So I'd like to thank you.
No problem.
Thank you ever so much for your time this morning and for all the work you've been doing alongside us. That's really grateful. So we're going to now move on to housing, I think. That'll be our next topic. So I'm really pleased to welcome to the table our Director of Housing, Andrew Billany. And Laura, I think we're going to hand over to a conversation between you and Andrew.
Do a quick little mic swap there. Thanks very much, Aidan. So welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Laura.
Our Director of Housing here at Dorset Council. Talk to me about housing in Dorset, because I've been on the sharp end of the lack of, sometimes lack of affordable housing, sometimes lack of, supported housing. What are we looking at? What's the landscape like here?
The landscape, I think, is lots of typical issues around the country around housing, and our responsibility in Dorset Council is to try to address housing needs in all their forms. So we do have, in terms of how it is for us, there are a range of needs, and there are people we've already mentioned. I think before we've quite a large older population within Dorset, for example. We've also got people with very specific needs for support and care. So partly what I thought would be worth talking about today, because we do have a range of issues facing us for housing, is to look at what we can do around improving using building technology, sort of innovations in building technology to address those housing needs. So we are, again, similar to a lot of places in the country, we haven't got enough housing, we haven't got enough affordable housing in particular, and we have a lot of challenges around the use of land, availability of land, and the challenges around developing that land as well. So probably worth saying a little bit more about is we do have those needs to meet. We've got around 6,000 people on the housing register. 300 of those have actually been homeless. So we do have quite a lot of significant challenges facing us. And within that number as well, there's also people with very specific care needs, as I say. So catering for those needs, we need to be imaginative and look for housing solutions in a number of forms, and do it in a way that's decent, sustainable, also able so that people can live in better homes, but it also works in terms of being sustainable ecologically, the green agenda. So that's something we're very, very keen to do. And I thought perhaps we've got some information to share around how we're using relocatable housing technology to address some of those needs.
That's fantastic. So, relocatable, not something you usually associate with a house. Talk me through that.
I can start with the slight negative because it was about explaining what it isn't.
Okay.
'Cause a lot of people think we're looking at providing tin sheds or
yeah.
caravans, and what we're looking to do. Lots of really good innovative stuff going out there within the building industry around providing housing that is actually built in factories and system built for people's needs. So there are advantages around technology to allow that to be done quickly. To a good standard and adapted to suit individual needs. So therefore, they're made in factories, craned from those factories and put into place. The relocatable element allows us, as a council and with our developer partners, housing associations, to look at the best use of land. So we might be able to use a piece of land which is ready for development in 3 or 4 years' time. So we can put housing in there for people's needs, and then later move it somewhere else where it's needed somewhere else. So we are developing that, taking advantage of that technology to build really good quality housing that's very, very swift to develop. Because most of you will know, most of the people watching this as well will know it takes years and years and years to build traditional housing. This is a quicker and a more nimble way of doing it.
So just to build a picture, so if there was perhaps a young adult with a learning disability wanting to live independently, they could live in this relocatable housing, which we can provide relatively quickly. Presumably, if they were on a site that's coming forward for development, they would actually then be able to watch potentially their new home being built.
I mean, the scheme, we're going to show a short film in a minute, and that's exactly what's happening in the scheme we're doing in Wareham. So we've provided some housing, good homes for people with particular support needs in Wareham in a period where we will, over a period of 2 or 3 years, build new permanent housing on that very site. So there's lots of advantages. They can get used to the area, get settled into the community, decide whether they like it, because maybe they won't, but mostly they will, and then get moved into more settled accommodation. So it has that advantage too. It's a bit of a try before you buy arrangement for those people. So
that's fantastic. And do they then have support on site? So that they can, because for some of them it might be the first time they've lived independently from their families or carers. So
I think it depends on the need. But
okay.
in this example, there is support on site, and that's something that would again be adaptable to people's needs. So we and it's very much the nature of this kind of supported housing work is to give people that pathway towards independence. So it can be the kind of support which helps a person get from being living with family and into a position where they can live independently and well for themselves. And that might be a transitionary period, so that over time they can live completely independently without support. So that's the kind of world we're operating within.
That's fantastic. And I think, particularly in Wareham, where we know that we do have a shortage of housing generally, to have a scheme like that is really, really exciting.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe shall I say a little bit more about it? I mean, it's called the scheme's called Red Oak Courts. We've got four people living there who came from our housing register. So people who have been previously homeless sometimes, but also with particular housing needs. But 13 of the people there have particular care and support needs. And as you've asked, Laura, there is a member of support staff on site 24 hours a day to give that support. So it does particularly focus on urgent needs for vulnerable people in that Purbeck area. It's been designed, the site as well as the properties have been designed to cater for people with mental health support issues, learning disability, and in some cases physical disability. And it's well equipped with modern technology, alarm systems such like, and that appears to be working well. But you'll hear in a minute directly from the residents living there. So people have been living there since last summer. And it's good to see confidence growing amongst the residents after they've settled in and appear to be thriving. So it's going well as far as we're concerned. And another added benefit is the residents are integrating into the local town and growing more independent. So relying less on social workers and able to enjoy life in their own, choosing their own paths forward. So perhaps we could hear the video. Yeah. So people, you can hear for yourselves.
I think my ambition for Purbeck was to have kind of a core and cluster model for adults with a learning disability. So they have the ability to live independently, but with support on site. So over many years, it's taken us to develop that service, and Dorset Council came up with the idea of the relocatables scheme, and it kind of went from there really. So all of those adults that were on a housing list that we developed and that were urgent need were prioritised for the housing to enable them to be as independent as possible, with staff on site that they're able to use their assistive technology if they need staff. Some individuals have their own support all the time, and others are able to just call in support when they need it. So most of the individuals that I can see that there's been a huge change have come from home. So they were really keen as adults to have that independence. And we've been able to reduce some of the individual support write-downs because they've shown an ability to be able to make positive change throughout their home environment. So they've had support to cook meals, to maintain the home environment, and actually started to do that independently. So there's several individuals where we've reduced the packages of care, which is less restrictive for those people. That's what we want to see. We want to see people being able to do things themselves, feeling more empowered that they can achieve the same as actually what everyone else is entitled to. And that's what this scheme is, we're hoping to achieve. And we're already seeing pockets of evidence of that. Certainly as a couple of ladies that have flourished, we don't really see a lot of, and the support is pretty much stopped, and unless it's something that's really changed or they want to try something new, and then they can build in that support again and we can start new challenges. So yeah, it's really nice to see. Do you think it's made a difference? You live in here?
Yeah.
Why do you think it's made a difference?
In my area. I born here.
You were born here?
You like Wareham, don't you?
Yeah.
I born this area.
You were born in this area, that's right.
Yeah.
Has it made a difference living on your own?
Yeah.
What's good about that?
I do cooking, waking up, working.
It's a bit different.
Is it?
Yeah, but it's a bit better.
A bit better?
I can do my own thing, like do my washing, cooking my own things, but like cooking and stuff.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And have you made any friends?
Some friends down here, yeah. We have a chat now and again and stuff.
Have a chat now and again?
Yeah.
That's nice, isn't it?
Hmm.
Do you need to get any help sometimes?
If I like do like letters, applications, a lot of jobs and stuff, and I press that little button thing.
Yeah.
And Abby sometimes see me sometimes. She does.
That's really nice. So if you need anything, just push a little button, and then staff will come down.
Yeah.
And have a chat with you and help you out.
Yeah.
Well, it is a good place to live here because I used to be at school here, so I used to be here and very, very well. So, yeah, I like to be on my own, independent, that sort of stuff, and I've got things going on at the moment. Yeah, do these newsletters and stuff like that. I do every month, and I do some event stuff like organising, say, some like people like to do things like do a bit of football and that sort of stuff. Yeah, this is part of my boss really doing this event for people to enjoy. So.
Brilliant, thank you. That was absolutely fantastic to hear from people who are actually living at the scheme. And I just want to explore a little bit, Andrew. So we've got relocatable, temporary, modular, very shiny, whizzy units there that people are obviously having the opportunity to live in. Try before you buy, as you said before. But could that not perhaps feel a little bit sort of clinical, a bit temporary, a bit like you're living in a shipping container? How have we been able to make that sort of feel more like home?
I mean, that's a good. Okay, that's often the comment that's made by members of the public. Is that's the point I said before. I think in terms of seeing it as a shipping container only. I guess the main intention, from my perspective, and certainly throughout the council, is to make sure that it's an advantage to do things better. So it is something that, because for example, the technology allows us to insulate the homes better, for example. So therefore, they're made in a factory and made to be warm, easy to heat with low energy bills, for example, good noise insulation. So really, it's about making sure we are designing homes that are better, and certainly within for homelessness accommodation throughout the country, it's often lower quality, flats above shops, those kind of accommodation. It's a chance to do things better, actually, if we can use that technology. So it isn't about a tin box on the edge of a housing estate. It's about making sure we design for better lives, frankly.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think that's so important, isn't it? That the quality is there, that people can really see that. Something's been designed with them in mind and not just as an afterthought. And I've got a note here that says that a resident of Red Oak Court actually created a survey for all the other residents to actually see how they wanted, perhaps was it to do with the outside space and how they wanted that to look?
I think so. I mean, hopefully people got a feel from the short film. I mean, it is a real sense of, we have particularly the worker involved, the staff on site, is to talk to the residents about what they want, and that includes improvements and outside space, because it's about making the places a home. So it isn't just about the relocatable; it's about how it works as a home and as a community. So that's very much part of the intention. There are other initiatives, such as we have a scheme called the bus shelter scheme in Weymouth, for example, which is a different client group. It's people who've been sleeping on the streets, so people often called rough sleeping. Okay. So we've installed 12 similar pods, temporary modular homes, to give people somewhere to sleep, to stay, and that's very much a community of people who have been living quite very, very challenging lives, and the ability to living somewhere decent, warm and safe, but also develop, importantly, a community as well. So.
And that actually started, didn't it, with a double-decker bus?
Very much.
And providing healthcare to people who were, sleeping on the street. And I think, I've seen some of the publicity around that, and I think, we can't underestimate the value of having your own front door, even if it's to a small pod, and and that space to call your own.
It's a chance to move things forward. So getting people safe and literally a double-decker bus, a London bus, was important. But this is a chance to go better and to again, purpose of this morning. I mean, to use technology to help people to do that better. It's not all about shiny and whizzy new technology, but it's about that certainly helps in making sure that people can stay safe and warm in their homes. So that's a good example of how we're using it for other needs as well. I would give a little plug at this stage as well, because we have a good local modular building company called Roll Along in Dorset, for example. So we talk to them. Good housing associations like Magna. So we are looking to be part of that wider set of people who are looking at these solutions.
So it's back to that kind of community then, isn't it? About, how do we bring together residents, technology, our partners and the council. So it's not all about the council doing all of this stuff to people. We've got to work in the round, haven't we? We
do, and that's and always looking to work with or sometimes national agencies such as Homes England, for example, always encourage housing organisations and housing authorities to look innovatively. So that's very much what we want to be doing. Always putting the customer and the resident first, of course.
Absolutely. And so what happens if these units then that we've got at Red Oak Court, so they're temporary, so are we going to bin them? What happens? What happens when we've built all the permanent stuff on the site?
Yeah.
Can we use them again? How does that work?
We can use them again, and that's the intention. So it's because it's a site which will eventually be filled with permanent housing. We don't want that to be wasted. So it will be very much the technology is put them back on a lorry, crane them somewhere else, and they're fit to go. So that's a developing new approach within building, so you don't have a wasted property, and they're suitable to be relocated several times as well.
Okay.
So that's very much
So
why
you can really
we're
react,
doing it.
then you can really react to different areas' needs where you've got those pieces of land and perhaps you wouldn't have been able to get the best use out of them, because we all know that things move quite slowly in the world of house building, as you've mentioned. So do you think this is the future then? Do you think the future is that kind of meanwhile use of sites and housing and technology and innovation to kind of really rapidly respond?
It's one use of it. I mean, it's a chance to get the best use of land. To be honest, and I know certainly if you ask, you must know this as a councillor. So people get very frustrated when there's wasted use of land if a site sat empty for years and years. So it's a chance to get good value as well as a good solution for a person. The technology itself is increasingly used for permanent housing as well. So certainly that's why I've given a plug for Magna and Roll Along, for example. They're building permanent housing with that same technology, and you wouldn't even know it was built in a factory. It's quite sort of, that's the way that we're looking to approach but there is a particular advantage we have here is a chance for us to meet very specific supported housing needs as well as the general house builder.
And with these companies that you mentioned, so you can presumably like design a blueprint for how. I mean, I've seen some of these units where they've got kind of worktops that can be just really simply wound up and down for wheelchair users, things like that. So we can have the opportunity to say this is what we need, and then these factories can literally go and make it.
They can design them in a factory, and they can, for example, they can design a bathroom or an adapted kitchen in a factory in that way. You can do that on site, but it's a way of doing it in more of a sort of assembly line approach, which sounds a bit clinical, but it does mean you can produce it quicker and react to the need quicker. I think is a key point here.
Absolutely, and I think we've all got to remember at the end of it, it might be produced in a factory or it might be built in the traditional way, but this is about building people's homes for them, so that they have somewhere to call their own, and I think that's so important. Thank you, Andrew. That's brilliant. Pleasure. I think we're now going to have our previous people back. We're getting Aidan back, and we're going to go to some questions. I think you guys have been busy collating. Elspeth. Busy collating all our lovely questions that have come in. So we're going to have a look at those and see if we can answer them. How are we going to do this?
We've got a question from the audience.
Oh, fantastic.
We've got one from Penny to start with, so I'm going to pass our catch box over to Penny.
Thanks, Delia. Right at the beginning, you were talking about the Virtual Day Centres project and all the devices that have gone out to people. And you were talking, Elspeth, a little bit about the content that you've provided for that, and in particular, something called Craft in a Box?
Craft in a Box, yes.
Yes. Could you say a bit more about that?
So the work we did was to link up with other organisations, and we linked with the Jolly Good company, and they produced Craft in a Box. So it literally was, as it said, a box with craft materials in, and they also supplied a little instruction video that someone could play as they were doing it, and they could stop it and do a bit for themselves and then play the next bit. And because they're doing it through their Jolly TV, Jolly Good TV network that they've set up, it's done in a very slow, methodical way that people can do at a pace that suits them. and that's rolling out. We've still got some more. I suspect that'll be promoted by Claire and the team because we still have some access to those. What was really nice was one young man had finished doing his project and sent a video back of him with his completed project. So we knew it was being used. So it wasn't just about connecting to the day centres, but trying to involve them in other things as well, and trying to get them linked up to family members.
That's wonderful. I have to say, all my craft projects end in total disaster. So perhaps I could benefit from a craft in a box. Have we got any more questions? I think you mentioned we had quite a few.
We've got questions coming in from Slido, from our remote audience.
Brilliant.
Been a lot of interest in the tech that you've shown on display this morning and talking about the tech lounge. And somebody's asked, how do they come and how do they book to come and have a look at the stuff in the tech lounge, please?
So you can book into the Tech Lounge, but if you go onto our Dorset For You website, there's an area where you can actually book in, and you can ring the Adult Access team and they could book you into the Tech Lounge. Claire would reply back, and she'll be able to sort of set up an appointment for you when she's able to go in. So she has been doing some virtual appointments, but now we've relaxed the regulations. She can actually have people come in. So, okay, right.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, just encourage anyone to get involved with that because it's really exciting. Next question.
Somebody else has also asked if they can have a full name list of the names of the technology shown today. So we have answered that with a direction to the website. So if anybody on Slido wants to go to that question and pick up the website from there, they can.
Brilliant, thank you.
Can I give a quick... I've got a question for you, Laura. Here we go. Laura, what is the Dorset's digital hotline phone number?
Gosh, this isn't rehearsed. So the Dorset's digital hotline phone number is 01305 221 048. So give us a shout on that. And that's Monday to Friday mornings. Thank you.
So lots of information on the Dorset Council website, all about those things. The next question that we've had in is the tech that you've been showing just for elderly people, or who else might benefit?
Oh no, it's absolutely not. It's for everybody. I think some of the sort of they've got like simpler little card phones. I don't know what the technical term for that is.
Okay.
Mic swap.
Yeah, the tech's for all people. So if you've got a need and you're Care Act eligible, we can do an assessment. So we can provide assistive technology for people with mental health problems, learning disabilities, and certainly with the Red Oak Court, we put a lot of technology in there. The other scheme that we've done recently is Fox Court in Sturminster Newton. So we can put some sort of digitally enhanced systems that can talk to care providers, and we can do individual systems. And I'll just give a plug for the Sight and Hearing Impairment Service at Millbrook, which is also digital technology, and the service there can put in supportive technology for people with a sight or a hearing loss, and a lot of the new developments within apps can help people with visual impairment. The iPhone and others, Android systems, have ability to read text to people. They can magnify labels. You can got cue card readers, so if you're visually impaired, you can go into a shop and read the barcode and it will tell you that it's Heinz baked beans or a standard shop brand baked beans. So there's a lot available, and it's across all categories of need. Yeah,
it's brilliant. Thank you.
Just want to come in on that very quickly, just to say that, I think quite a lot of this stuff, as you've said, Elspeth, is around, and there's actually quite a lot of free apps out there that are using AI to help, for example, people who are living with a visual impairment to see what's going on. So we have a free app, it's called Seeing AI, and literally you can hold it up and it will read for you a menu. It will tell you you're sitting opposite a lady who's smiling, or I think she's smiling, I think it normally says, unless you're the Mona Lisa, in which case, who knows. So I think it's really worth doing some research, because a lot of this stuff is there, it's freely available and it's free.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much. And I think we've got time for one more.
Yeah, we've had a question in. They say, hi, as a nursing care home in Weymouth, Dorset, also providing home care for Dorset Council locally. We'd love to be involved in tech trials. How do we do this?
Oh, we'd love you to be. Give us a shout. Where's my piece of paper? Give us a shout on 01305 221048 or drop us an email, really. Yes, absolutely. We want everyone involved. Thank you. That's brilliant.
Good. Thank you for that, and thank you, panel, for that quick Q&A. And I think there's quite a few other questions on Slido, and we'll try and give written responses to those. So do keep an eye on the Dorset Council website. And now, the final item that we want to come into on this slot, we were talking earlier about data and information and joining up information and how that can build up a picture of our customers, of our service users. And I think a really prime example of this is what the work that's going on across the NHS in Dorset, indeed in connecting that with information held by Dorset Council as well. So we're going to now run a video session that's led by colleagues in the NHS, by Peter Gill, who's the Director of Informatics at University Hospitals Dorset, and also one of his colleagues, Crystal Dennis, who's an operational lead as well at the Clinical Commissioning Group. So we're going to run that video, and that'll give you some insights into the Dorset Care Record.
So thank you very much, Peter and Crystal, for joining us today. So Peter, as SRO of the Dorset Care Record, how is the record making a difference to the lives of clinicians and the public? What are the benefits of having a shared care record, and does data really save lives?
Thanks, Tony. Pleasure to be here today. So I think the simple message is instant access to critical information through the Dorset Care Record, which is hard to get to through other mechanisms. So previously people would have had to call through to a GP, for example, to GP receptionist to try to speak to the GP, to ask that GP some information, and that person may have been coming from a busy emergency department and trying to make those calls while the patient's in front of them would have been very time consuming and possibly not even effective. It may be that the GP couldn't come to the phone and describe what they know about the patient. So those very old-fashioned processes have now been replaced by clinicians across UHD and social care staff at the click of a button, whilst already in their core electronic record they use every day, they can now click through to the Dorset Care Record and have critical information that primary care, Dorset County, UHD knows about the patient and client in front of them. So huge time saving for clinical staff, and as we know, they've been under immense pressure, always are, but the last 18 months has been accelerated that. So that's a massive benefit for clinical staff. We see that, don't we, in the number of records accessed on a monthly basis, which has been growing. I'm absolutely delighted. It's my favourite statistic to look at on a monthly basis to see how that's been growing. And I think we're around about 42,000, if memory serves, records accessed in August, somewhere in the 40s certainly, which is just an absolute joy to see. Does it save lives? Well, I believe it does. We have had one direct recognition that Dorset Care Record has saved a life. I suspect there are hundreds of thousands of times where the Dorset Care Record contributed to life-saving care, but the one which we wrote up some months ago was in Dorset County Hospital with somebody who was known to the mental health services accessing Dorset County Hospital's ED with, I think, a cardiology presentation, and if the ED staff had not accessed the Dorset Care Record, they might not have realised that this was indeed a cardiology incident rather than a mental health incident or effect. Have you done the? So I'll pause there. You may want to ask me something else, but I've probably rattled on for long enough.
Thank you, Peter. That's great. So, Crystal, turning to the personal health record, how will my DCR empower people to take care of their health? What will it enable people to do in the early moments and in the longer term?
So it's going to enable people to carry around their records like a passport.
a digital passport. So in the first wave of functionality that we have for My DCR, they're going to be able to have a look at their medications, their conditions. They'll be able to see previous events or be able to view their up and coming appointments. And they'll be able to share files. Their clinicians and their clinical team can share files with them, and also they can share files with their team. But one of the great things is that instead of having lots of different points where we say to somebody, have a look at this URL or this website for some information, advice and guidance, we're going to bring all of those kind of key points into one for My DCR. So you'll have one point of navigation, so you won't have to remember anything other than logging into My DCR, and you'll be able to see things like access through to other digital health tools, a video library, as well as anything that's been shared to you by your clinical team. And what's exciting about this is that as we continue to grow the functionality of this platform, you'll just start to see it become more valuable. So we're going to make it a really good user experience. We want to make sure that people are using this for the best of their health and well-being, and that it's and that's it. I'm just going to stop there for a second.
That's great, Crystal. That's fantastic. And finally, probably a question for both of you. How does the DCR, My DCR, fit in with a wider digital agenda for Dorset? And Dorset's getting really renowned, and this festival is showing, putting us really on the map in terms of the digital health and social care agenda. But how do you think the DCR, My DCR, will really fit into that?
Do you want to go first, Crystal?
No, you crack on.
All right. Well, it is central, utterly and absolutely central to the Dorset digital strategy. It is one of our proudest achievements, and it is something we will grow. We have about 50% of the data feeds into it. We have a huge ambition to have around about 92, I think, data feeds, and we've got around about 49, I think. So just over 50% of the feeds. We've got more feeds to come, particularly from social care and from community mental health services, and some from the trust that I work at on a daily basis as well. So we've got more data to feed in, and that was sort of round one. I suspect that once we've achieved all that, we'll consider that we've got more data which we think will be even more valuable. And as Crystal's explained, we'll have this fantastic ecosystem of digital tools and channels for patients, carers, and clients to access seamlessly as well. So it is the central piece of our strategy going forward, I think, is probably the way I'd put it.
Thank you. Crystal?
No, so completely agree with Peter. There is a lot, particularly in the wake of the pandemic, that's come out from our central teams around digitising, connecting and transforming. And this is about connecting all of those pieces so that we've got a really good, smart foundation in order to drive transformation plans going forward. And they're not just transformation about how we use our data as a workforce, to make decisions and to accelerate access to decisions at point of care. But most importantly, it's about how we are helping to enable our population to take care of themselves, especially with the shortages that we have around our workforce going forward. This is the biggest threat to the NHS at the moment and to integrated care systems. So we want to make sure that all of our population have access to these tools and that they know how to use them and what they're being used for. And so it's an absolute central piece and our foundation to everything that happens from now.
My Dorset Care Record, My DCR, is your personal health and care record provided by the Dorset Care Record Partnership. It's a new way for you and your health and care providers to collate and update information. It's a secure, free, patient-owned record that will, over time, allow you to view upcoming appointments, enable you to read your clinic letter following a hospital appointment, and your discharge summary after a stay in hospital, provide you with blood test results, give you the chance to nominate any friends and family members to have access to your medical information so they can support you in your care and treatment, connect you to a bespoke health library, enabling you to research your medical conditions. You will be invited to join My DCR by a health professional from a specific clinical team. You will receive an email which contains a link. Clicking on the link will redirect you to the My DCR registration page. You will then need to follow the on-screen prompts. Once you have completed all the required information, you will then be redirected to the My DCR login page. Enter your name and the password you have created, and you will have access to your own personal health record. Don't forget to protect your access details and password in the same way that you would do for other private online services. When you choose a password, make sure it is memorable to you, and please don't share it with others. If you'd like more information about My DCR, please email us at dcrprivacyofficer@dorsetcouncil.gov.uk or ring our helpline 0345 200 0026.
My name is One Hicks and I am a citizen of Dorset, and I have a My Dorset Care Record or My DCR account. Today I'm going to show you what it's like to have access to your own record. Now here I'm just logging in using my own username and password, which has been set for me as part of the registration process. So anyone involved with my care can invite me, and you can see here I can reset or check my username and reset my password if I need to. So this is my own Dorset Care Record or My DCR, and you can see I don't have any upcoming appointments. However, if I need it for reference, I can see the previous appointments that I've had. Also, I can go to my health record where I've got goals, actions, shared files, documents, and the health library. So in my goals, oops, they load. I can see my goals, which I set these myself. Here, this one, so I need to reduce my A1C percentage. So I've set this, and then my clinician has set goals for me around reducing cholesterol and pain control, and I can update these as and when I want to, just by putting the figure in there and clicking on the tick. I can also just close that. I can also add another goal if I want to, and I have a drop-down list here of goals that I might want to use, or I can set a custom goal for myself. And equally, any clinician or professional involved in my care can update my goals for me or add goals for me if that's appropriate. Actions can be standalone actions. They can also be linked to my goals, which is really helpful. So here you can see there's a test action that was added by my clinician. And for example, if my goal was weight management or weight reduction, I could set actions, or my clinician could set actions for me around eating less takeaways, taking more exercise, eating more vegetables, those kind of things. And they could all be put on as separate actions, so we could look at those in our appointments and measure the progress I'm making. Shared files here gives me the opportunity to share files with my clinician, and they can be seen by any other professionals involved in my care. So I can click on here and attach a file if I want to. I'm going to attach here a picture of a fox, and then I can add any sort of category I choose. So say I put stoma for this one, for example, and then here I can put shared file. Anything here, and in the demo purposes, I do need to click the acknowledgement here to say that this is an unmonitored service, so it's not monitored 24/7, but then any of the professionals will be able to see that I've shared this. They will get a notification to say that I've shared that. Documents gives me the opportunity to receive letters, reports, etc. from my clinicians. For example, a letter after a clinic. So here I've got a report. This is my colonoscopy report. So rather than this being printed and posted and sent to me, then I might mislay it, or it may go to the wrong address, or someone else may open it, I will get this through my Dorset Care Record, and then I can view this and keep it safely for future reference. The health library doesn't have anything in it yet for me, but when my clinicians tag me in relevant documents, for example, an information booklet ahead of my colonoscopy, I would be able to access that and read that here. The next stage I have in my DCR is links to different helpful websites. For example, the R Dorset applications website, which is the Orca Health Library. So if I wanted to search for an application that I could use on my phone that would help me manage COPD or diabetes, for example, I could do that here. I can also access information videos from our Dorset Digital using that link. And then the key websites here, which if I wanted something new added to this for my own benefit, I could request that. There's links here to different approved websites for more information about specific conditions, and also more general things like Live Well Dorset and Steps to Wellbeing for physical and mental health support. The next one is the Dorset Care Record website, so I can click on that to very easily get into the Dorset Care Record website, which is the wider system that my Dorset Care Record is part of. And equally, I've got Contact Us and Help and Guidance links there if I want them. I'm also able to set myself a support network. So these will be friends and family members who I choose to include here, so that any of my clinicians or professionals can see who is involved in my care in terms of support, and whether or not I give consent to share information with them. I can change this information, update phone numbers, etc. withdraw consent or add consent anytime I want, just by literally clicking on the person, editing them, and then, for example, here it's saying that the consent to share is unknown, so I will just change that to yes, click on update. That will redirect to my list of friends and family members, and then any clinicians will be able to see that. Hopefully it will, a moment. And then any clinicians will be able to see, there we are. And then instead of it saying unknown, it says yes. So now anybody logging into the Dorset Care Record via the clinical portal in the hospital, for example, can see that I've given consent to share information with my friend Daffy Duck. I can also, for example, let's use Fred Flintstone here. I can send an invitation to Fred by completing this form to invite Fred to be my representative if I wanted Fred to have access to my own care record. So this would generate an email to Fred. He could complete the registration process, and then he would be able to log in and access my health record, as well as having, once he's registered for his own health record, he can do that for himself as well. As well as my friends and family, which I have control over and which professionals involved in my care can see, there's also care team and organisations down here. So I can see who's involved in my care from a professional point of view, what they do, their names and phone numbers if that's appropriate for me to know. Then at the bottom here, I've got just basic information which comes from my GP surgery, and I can contact my GP to have this information updated if I so wish. And up in the top right hand corner where I can click on profile, it's a similar thing, but I have control over this. So I can update my password, I can update the email address that I receive notifications to, and I can add a mobile phone number if I want to. The other element in this corner is notifications. So here I've been able to set notifications. So whenever a document is published in my DCR, for example, a clinic letter, an appointment letter, or any other document, an endoscopy report, for example, then I will get an email notification to say that a document's been published, and I can log in here and read that, as I've just shown you. And equally, if a clinician was to share or edit or delete a file, then I will get an email notification about that. And any representatives that I've invited to view my record and who have completed the registration process will also get notifications and will be able to log in and read that information on my behalf if that's appropriate. But equally, I don't have to let anybody have access to my health record if I don't want to. And then finally, once I finish viewing my health record, I can just click on log out and that will take me back to the login page.
Well, that was fascinating, wasn't it, to hear about the positive impact that information sharing is having. So good progress there on the Dorset Care record. Well, I think that pretty much is bringing us to a conclusion on this morning's section of Future Fest. Laura, how has it been for you?
I've had a brilliant morning. I think it's been so lovely to hear about all the innovation, everything that we can do to keep people safe and independent at home for as long as possible, which I think should be all of our goal. So I just really wanted to say thank you. Thank you to the brilliant production people who are making all this happen. We're just standing here and saying some words, but they've done all the technological wonders. And thank you to everybody that's taken the time to come and be on our panel and be asked questions and to answer questions. So, yeah, I think it's been brilliant.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it too. And the final section of Festival of the Future is this afternoon, starting at 1:30, I think, and our topic's going to be digital leadership. So we're going to wrap up now and have a bit of a break before the 1:30 restart. And I'd echo your thanks. Thank you, production team in particular. So, Laura, is bringing it all to an end. Should we go and enjoy some of the joys of Moores Valley Country Park?
Absolutely.
Thanks, everyone.